Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Sarah Jane. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I am delighted to be joined by Nicky Mendham. Nicky, thank you for coming and joining us tonight and sharing with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really great to be here. I know we haven't really known each other that long, but what I know about the show and what I know about you, it's just it's wonderful what you're doing for people here.
Thank you so much indeed. The topic for this evening: how to use your human design to express your life purpose. Before we get into that, because we will get into that as part of this, share a little of your story and how this came to be. That is the human design aspect, and we take the rest of that with it. How this became important to you.
It's interesting because I've done a lot of modalities in my lifetime. I started off with body work, but it wasn't until I was 43, so it was in 2017 that things really changed. It was a pivotal point in my life, and things started changing, and I was very aware of some unresolved childhood issues that were holding me back. I'm sure people recognize that, and so I was looking for different ways of resolving that. So I actually found myself back at home, and suddenly, as soon as I arrived back in my old town, things started bubbling up, and there were some realizations, and I thought, oh, okay, there we go, we've got something that I can work with. And as a result of that, all of this stuff bubbling up, I really needed to find somewhere that I could ground that. So I ended up on Dartmoor for 18 months. Amazing place. I mean, talk about push yourself to the limits. It was fantastic. Where I found myself was in a small hamlet right up on the top near the Tors, small little farm track to get me there. And what I realized was when you take a lot of your distractions away and you're literally left, I mean, I had no TV, I had no phone, I had to drive 15 minutes in my car to get a phone signal. And I was there for that prolonged period of time, and the dog and cat population outweighed the human population there. I had about 5 neighbours. So all of the distractions were gone. And it was amazing. I mean, it was terrifying to start with. I remember moving into this little house and just crying my eyes out. And I cried for about 3 days. And the terror appeared and I didn't know what I'd done. But then I started easing into it, and suddenly I really got into my Reiki practice. Now, I've been a Reiki practitioner for a long time, but it upped it a gear. And it felt as though I was permanently switched on. And all of this information started coming through in my meditations. I was very close to a portal. I learned how to open a portal, went to all different dimensions within that. But then suddenly I started seeing geometric shapes, in particular a 64-pointed star. And what I've discovered about my experience and my practices is I get a tiny little piece of information and then I'm left with it to figure it out. There's never a storyline. There's never an amazing aha moment. I just get a little piece just dropped in, and then I have to wait. And sometimes that can be years that I wait. But I don't know what made me do it, but I went onto the internet and I just looked at 64 pointed stars. And the thing that was coming up for the 64 points was the I Ching. And then I moved on and I was doing a little bit more investigation, and human design uses the 64 gates of the I Ching. And when I looked at the body graph, because of my Reiki training, because of my shamanic training, because I was on the planet at the time that this was downloaded, I just went, I know this map. I know this system. So it was already imprinted. It was already integrated to a certain degree. And at that time, I was really looking for a reset button because I was aware of all of this childhood stuff that had come up. And I just thought, there's got to be one thing. It's got to be really simple. I'm searching all over the place, but there's something really simple that is going to take me back to a reset. And the moment that I started studying human design, I went, that's it. That is it. And it's a system that has provided me with realizations, understanding, a tool to make positive, powerful decisions that are right for me, not out of obligation, not being coerced, feeling as though I should. And, you know, I've like I say, I've been on this journey for a lot of years as a practitioner. It's 23 years now. But this was the one thing that was a huge game changer for me. Absolutely huge.
And it is about the game changers in our life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the wake up calls, the whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
So, and Dartmoor. I just love Dartmoor.
Place. The veil is very thin up there, very thin.
Which explains some of the experiences I've had. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, but we're not here to talk about those. Talk about human design. So can you share a little about what human design is? Because I think that might help people and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. Well, the technical side of it, if I want to come from a scientific viewpoint, it's about the time that you were born. So it talks of your genetic imprinting. So similar to astrology, we use certain degrees of astrology in the sense that we use the sun and the earth, which is different to astrology. We use the nodes of the moon itself, and all of the planets to navigate and create a map for you. Now, in astrology, it takes the point of your birth. So the moment that you leave the mother, that's the point that you're imprinted with neutrino streams, which is subatomic particles. It's scientifically proven. And in these particles of light, 70% of which we receive from the sun, they carry information like a characteristic. So this is where we get the mythology from around, you know, astrology and so it takes that aspect. But what also human design takes into consideration is 88 days prior to your birth, which is the point that it's believed by Ra, who introduced human design, that the soul enters the physical form. So we have, from the astrological time point, your point of birth, your personality. This is what you shine out into the world. This is how you create magnetism. This is how you draw people to you. And it's very much mind-led. It's very much a yang energy. It's an outward-facing energy. And then the 88 degrees prior to your birth, the imprinting that you receive at that point that the soul enters the body, we are looking at a very yin energy, and it's all to do with your inheritance, your lineage. So from a shamanic tracking, point of view, I'm very aware of the power of unresolved emotions or mental states that have been carried down the lineage. We can recognize our lineage on a physical level. We can share the same eye color as parents or grandparents, the hair color, the nose that you have on your face, the way that you walk sometimes, that's on the physical lineage. But we don't always get to see the emotional side unless it's in a negative way sometimes that comes out. You often hear about like father, like son, with the anger issues or, depression or anything like that. So when we're looking at 88 degrees prior, this is what our soul agreed to heal on behalf of our family lineage. And going back to the traditional teachings of Native Americans, when we work on ourselves, we're not only working on us, but we're impacting the 7 generations prior and releasing them from their karma. We're also working on the next 7 generations ahead of us. So when I saw this map presented and the concept behind it, I just went, I know this. I know this is the work that I do. And so it provides us with a map, and it's a blend of esoteric teachings. So as well as the astrology, it takes those coordinates into consideration. It also works with the Hindu chakra system. It works with the 64 gates of the I Ching, so the characteristics of those. It works with the pathways of the Kabbalah, and it also works with quantum physics. So what I tend to do with my clients is, it's almost as though if you, say for example, you've got a fault in your wiring, in let's think a fridge freezer or something. You're going to unplug it and you're going to do some testing, and then you're going to plug it back in again and see what happens. In that same way, what I do is I take the chart and we start to dissect it piece by piece, and we start to contemplate and embody each of the teachings. And once you get to see the results that start to come out of it, once you start to embody in it and actually working with it, because learning it is great, it's one thing, but to actually embody the work and do it, that's where the wisdom is. And that's the change point. That's what I found is the change point. Because the work that I've been doing prior, it was very much me involved in doing that. So I kept getting clients coming back, repeating, because of course the healing was coming through, but then the mind would go and unpick the work to a certain degree. So it was almost as though I found myself taking 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. What I found with human design is you go away with some, homework basically, to go and try out, because it gives you clues. I'm never going to sit here and tell you who you are. That's for you to figure that out. I know, through my lens, what my life looks like. I hear stories from my clients, so I can piece clues together in the charts, but ultimately it's your experience. So I always say to my clients, take what I say with a pinch of salt. It's guidance. That's it. It's not a rule. This is a tool, and it's a very powerful tool if you're prepared to go away and play around with it and see how it turns up in your life.
It's about making suggestions, isn't it? And it's a suggestion. It's your choice.
Yes. Yeah.
It's your choice what you do with it. If you choose to stick it in file 13, for those who are not sure what file 13 is, it's the bin. If you choose to stick it in file 13, then that's your choice.
Yes.
But yeah, I get it, because the one thing I won't do with my clients is give them advice.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in obviously where you're concerned, you are to a certain degree making suggestions from your own experiences. You know these things worked for you and work for you. I don't know about you, but the only time I find myself suddenly sort of saying something, I'm thinking, where the heck did that come from? You're actually sort of channeling some guidance.
Yes.
Usually it's not just for the client, it's for you as well and for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's trusting, because we know we're working with the energy, and because that's what we are. We're energy, we're a vibration.
Yeah.
And it's helping us to get that vibration back into sync, so we be our perfect selves.
Yeah, exactly. And I know certainly when I work with my clients, I open up before I start a session or before I do a talk. Like we were talking earlier, we've been chatting for about half an hour, and I'd literally just finished my day at that point, which is great for me because it means that my mind can't get involved. I have quite a unique design in the sense that I'm extremely open. If you think about empaths as being sensitive, I have sensitivity times 100, probably, based on my design. But what that allows me to do is be a channel. And quite often people will ask me, what was that you said? I have no clue. I have no clue what is going to come out of me. And there are times when I think, where on earth did that come from? And as you say, it's a message for me as well as for my clients. And I'm always very, very open and, aware that this is information for me, because the more that I can work with this system for myself and through my clients as well, the deeper I can dig into my own shadow side, because it works very deeply with the shadow. And it can start to resolve, it can start to give me that courage to look at the emotions, and am I suppressing? Am I repressing? Am I using my emotions or something as an escapism? Am I projecting my emotions? So it gives me a lot of opportunity to inquire about where I'm at, where my clients are at. And also what I find is I can't really, it's difficult. I never have a one size fits all, because that's impossible.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gift for me that I've received from this, is learning that I don't have the answers. The answers are stored deep within me. I have no clue what's in there until you start asking me questions and pulling it out. So I can't have a structure, a list of things that I'm going to talk about, because each and every person is different. Every question is going to be met with a different answer. And it depends which realm of me I'm tapping into to get that information. And I never know.
But I think it's also important for the individual you're working with that we are totally about them. Well, no, we're not totally about, it's they are totally about them.
Yeah.
That session is about them.
Yeah.
It's not about us. We may share something of our experience to support them, but it's, because basically, as I asked you to share a little of your story, it's the understanding.
Yes.
It's that ability to have empathy rather than sympathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important that we are able to do that.
Yeah.
So, human design. So other than, obviously, you talked about healing the shadows, sort of healing the past, even healing past lives and past family sort of. But what do most people sort of come to you for? What would you say would be most people? Yes, that why they come to you, because people have obviously got to have a reason.
Yeah. Well, when you look at your human design, like I say, you create a magnetic pull when you start to work with each of the energies within your design, and you start to unpick that, you become more magnetized. So I tend to attract people that are needing assistance with relationships. That's been a big theme in my life, about how to create connections that are long lasting, fruitful, enjoyable, exciting. And so quite often I find that I attract a lot of women who are really struggling with a partner who is quite dominant, women who have really lost their way. And it's not just women, but when I'm looking at my general, if I was to generalize, I would probably say about 90% of my clients are women. And that's because when I look at my design, my sun energy is in the 37th gate of the I Ching. And what that means is it's the gate of equality. So I'm here to talk about equality. And so I gifted myself a family that really weren't equal in their positions within the family. So I had a lot of learning from childhood. And then, of course, I followed that blueprint into my first relationship, my second relationship, my third relationship. And then I thought, well, why isn't this working out? Because there's the blueprint, but it doesn't seem to work for me. So that's when I really started delving into it. So I work with women in particular who become overwhelmed by their emotions, who are needing some help to figure out what it is that they actually need. And so I give a pathway around assisting them to even really know what their needs are. I meet so many women that don't even know what their needs are. And so I have a template that I work through, and we get to go through that step by step. And what I find is once they understand what their needs are, overnight boundaries appear. And it's no longer the whole, I've got to keep the whole sea at bay, the whole of the force of nature anymore. It's just, I know what my need is. There's the line. If you want to step over that, there's a little bit of flex, but actually if you go a bit too far, then I'm going to go just take myself somewhere else. And so it becomes a gentle line. It becomes a loving line, but still very firm. It's still a line.
Yeah.
And the energy then that women receive from that, because they're stepping into their own power. Yeah. And it's no longer about forcing things. It's no longer about forcing communication, no longer forcing issues and jobs and having to share things. And it's about that awareness within themselves. And when they really reconnect with their purpose, when they know their purpose in life and how that plays out for them, then there's an anchor. There's an anchor that you can work with. There's something that you can keep coming back to. So when you find yourself a little bit distracted by somebody over here or a situation over there, you've got that solid place to come back to. And it's when you haven't got that solid place, when you lose that anchor, that addictions can come in. And when I say addictions, I'm talking about, there's a huge range of addictions, but anything that has a negative impact on you or somebody who is close to you. These distractions, I was amazing at being a workaholic. That was my absolute favorite escapism. And now I find myself walking around completely feeling the abundance of being able to work when I like, with whoever I like, and being able to pick my life for me rather than feeling as though I'm forced and pulled around. I get to choose, because knowing my baseline, that's really helped me with my self-esteem, my self-worth, my self-confidence, and when people know me from my past life, which I used to be a regional manager of a bank, they always saw me as this extremely confident person. And in my work, that's great. I put the mask on. My home life was in pieces. My marriage was in tatters. My social life was in the toilet. And, it took me a long time to regain that. And as I say, human design was that pivotal point, because it gave me a purpose, and it gave me something that I could keep coming back to and anchor to and keep refining and tweaking and really connecting within myself and aligning to. So now I find that, when I work with people, there's Reiki in the room anyway. That's just a given, it's on. But as well, we can find ourselves doing meditation. We can find ourselves jumping around the room, even though we're on Zoom. There's lots of different things. What does a physical body need to shift that unresolved trauma, that unresolved pain, And I work with 3 different environments, and the first being the physical environment. If our bodies don't feel safe, it's very difficult to get into those emotional realms and the mental realms. We have to just keep repressing and suppressing, and because to not is to blow our nervous system. So it's about gently, kindly reminding the body of what it needs, what its birthright is. And so there's a process, and some people get it like that, and for others there's a little bit more work involved in that. But everybody comes to that point when they're ready.
Oh, don't we just, sort of, it can be that wake up call. And I get it. I got to area manager in retail, sort of, and everybody saw this really confident person walk into stores, scared of me? Why would you be scared of me? I'm a mouse, sort of, But that's not the persona that came across.
No.
I'm the area manager, you know, and you, oh my God, don't upset them, you know.
Yeah.
So I absolutely get it. But no, and I do. I really do. And I suppose, I don't know about sort of you, but finding my life purpose was actually through my own healing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's how we connect, and every single person, every single moment, there is an opportunity to connect to our life purpose. Every single relationship that we have is a mirror for us. It's a lesson for us to bring us, refine us, keep tweaking us back into that purpose. So when we're struggling in our connections, there's a really amazing gift in there. And if we can learn to become the observer of our life by settling our body, giving ourselves some tools to work with, you know, giving ourselves that space and that silence, and really slowing the body down, you know, really allowing that wise guide to speak, rather than the one that wants to be up at the forefront all of the time, telling you how you can't do things, how you shouldn't do things. When we can just take a step back and be quiet and be with ourselves, that's when that guide, that little quiet voice, but extremely powerful, can come through and can be heard. And that's where the direction comes from. And that's what Dartmoor gave to me. It slowed me down. It shut out all of the external voices. And it just allowed me to be with me. And I know that not everybody has that opportunity to do that. You know, people have kids. I mean, I don't have kids. I can't imagine what it'd be like to have kids. I'm a projector in my design. There are 4 different types. We'll probably go into this in a minute. There are 4 different types of energies kind of catalogued within the human design system. And I'm here as a guide, and I don't have sustainable energy. So for me to think about having children, I just think, wow, I'm in awe of the other types that can do that. That takes so much energy, you know. But it's interesting how we process things, and how we live our lives, and finding that moment can be found in the strangest of places. You know, it can be found in the shower in the morning. It can be found walking to work. If you can just bring yourself back to you each time, rather than I've got a whole list of things that I've got to do in the day. There's always going to be that list there. It's never going to go away. But if you can just, for 5 minutes each day to get started, or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, just to connect into how you're feeling, what are you experiencing right now in this moment? What do you need? And you start following that. You start following the emotions. You start following the intuition. Then everything starts to speed up. But it speeds up. I'm saying it speeds up, but actually it's the quantum field. It's extremely fast, but also deadly slow as well at the same time. I don't know how to describe that. Maybe you can help me with that one. It's a feeling, it's an experience. And I would say that when it drops in, you know what I'm talking about.
Just trust the process. That's all that's all I've done. I think for me, I've just, since starting this journey, this aspect of life, since finding the Reiki and starting this journey, it's all been about trust for me. Not hearing things, not seeing things, not necessarily feeling things, but just absolutely knowing. And I think when you were sort of talking about sort of coming to an understanding of self, and something happened with me sort of a few, not so many years ago. I love going out for walks every day. I've got local woods. I can just go for a walk. Brilliant. And that's my freeing my mind. Freeing the mind, getting that out of the way. Many of the dragons have given me their names during those walks and whatever, because it's that out of work mode. but it was that sudden coming to an understanding of an aspect around my wake-up call, and the fact that I had been in so much pain. And I think my husband had given me a bowl of soup that night after I'd got out of hospital, and which I'd probably made anyway, because I'm sure it was a homemade soup. So all you had to do was heat it up. And bearing I had my jaw wired, it had to be soup because I couldn't, I really couldn't. I'd got a broken jaw, so I really couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
And the following morning, it was okay, fine. You're okay. You can just get on. You can do everything you've always done, and sort of whatever. And no, I don't have kids either. And from my reaction, thank goodness for that, because I don't know how people cope. I've got 2 sisters with 5 kids between them. And they've all got kids now.
Yeah.
But I think it was that sudden understanding of the child who was hospitalized, and who was so left to get on with it, because at that time parents couldn't go and stay with their children.
No.
And what happened to me was I felt deserted by my husband, although we were still in the same house together, whatever. But he just had, it was a broken jaw. You couldn't even see any bruises or swelling on my face. So I didn't even look as if I was ill. And it was just like, do you know what? The people just not care. But maybe that was exactly what I required at that time to eventually get me to realize the most important person to care about me was me.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, but understandings of things, but it was also came an understanding of him.
Yes.
Because of the way his family was structured, his mother and his father.
Yeah.
And his father rarely spoke to his mother.
Right.
And his mother was always the little housewife.
Yeah.
And it was just like, hang on, I have a full-time, we just didn't understand that once we were married, he thought he what marriage was what he'd witnessed between his own parents.
Yeah.
That was not marriage as far as I was concerned.
No. And also as well, as you say, it's the blueprint that we follow, and there's nothing wrong with it. Nobody's at fault. It's just how it is. But it doesn't serve. And as you say, you were that little girl. You were triggered back into being that little child. So he was showing you a mirror of your blueprint as a child of not deserving. And it doesn't surprise me because that it ended up with your jaw, because if you think about the throat chakra, it's all about your expression. If you were in a relationship where you couldn't speak, and especially when you feel, when you're in a place of grief, you feel as though you're lacking commitment from somebody, lacking connection with somebody, lacking intimacy with somebody. It's the breeding ground for our psychosomatic illnesses. Same as guilt, when we keep telling ourselves, I don't deserve to have any better, because, up until the age of 7, in a healthy way, children are narcissistic. It's all about them. They're learning how to be in a tribe. But what they don't realize is at the time that if anything is going on, because the child is the center, if mum and dad are fighting, guess what? They think it's all their fault. If mum and dad are happy, guess what? They think it's all their fault. So we observe the environment that's around us, and for the first 7 years of our lives, we're like sponges. We just take in everything. And then we get into adulthood and we repeat. But what we learned in childhood was coping strategies to survive childhood. So if you were brought up in an environment of parents fighting all the time, the child learns to be quiet, stay under the parapet, don't be seen. And so we continue with that, and we create relationships where we're not seen, and we hide, and we're mediocre, and we can't step into our power. And then we wonder why, and we start complaining about it. And we're going, hang on a minute, I didn't sign up for this. But yes, we did. But it's not until you've gone through that a few times. This is what I'd love to teach in schools. It's not until you've gone through that cycle a few times. And generally, you know, when you get to Uranus opposition, which is what I did, and the pivotal point of my life, and when you're so far off your life purpose, you're gonna get a push in the right direction.
Yeah.
But at the time, it's not always what we want, but it's certainly what we need.
Oh no, it was definitely what I wanted, I think, and needed. Actually, I did understand it. It still had to come in the form of a broken jaw. But you talked about the 4 quadrants, did you say?
Yes, my quadrite. Yes, yeah. So so when it comes to human design terms, we look at, like I say, we look at the body, which is that's the 88 days prior to birth. So that's connected to the body. And the point that we're born, the natal chart, is connected to the mind. And if you think about mind over matter, the mind resonates at a higher frequency, 400 hertz, according to David Hawkins, and the body is at about 200. So yes, mind over matter. But we have to make sure that what the mind is saying is correct. Now, what I've found with my mind is it's very open, it's very receptive. And so I've had to go through a huge programming, deconditioning from my programming, because I'm still like a sponge. So I'm still like that 7-year-old child. Nothing changed for me. Most people at 7 years old flick into a little bit of a change and they go, oh, actually, no, do you know what? This doesn't serve and this isn't right for me. But what I found is with my journey, I was questioning why I was so naive. I was just thinking, I'm a regional manager of a bank and I'm an extremely intelligent woman. Why am I so naive? And then when I came across human design, it's because my mind is like a sponge all the time. And I can't filter what goes in. It goes through my mind and deep into my body. And it's not until I'm with people that it gets called out. And that can be anything. Sometimes I just repeat what I've heard originally. So I've had to go through a process of checking everything. You know, every single belief system that I've had, I've questioned, where did that come from? Is that really me? Is that my value system? Is that my belief system? And so I've had a journey of unpicking. So that's from the mind, it's very absorbent. And then also from the body as well, it really takes in the environment. So the moment that I meet somebody, I can instantly get a feel of exactly what's going on for them, which until I learned how to switch off was quite detrimental, because, you know, like I say, that empowered empath for a long time was disempowered because I just took on everybody else's stuff. I would hear the story, I would empathize. There's something going off in my mind saying, don't get involved. But there was something in my body that was being triggered by that. And again, it's going back to that blueprint and where I carried it on. So I've had to decondition everything, because everything that went in didn't have a filter. And it still doesn't have a filter. So I have to be very, very careful with who I hang out with, what I watch. I rarely read books. I don't know. I have connections with the Pleiadians, but that's my own journey. I've never read a book about them. I don't want to hear other people's versions of it, because that will taint my experience. I want to remain as open as a vessel as I possibly can be. And so I just allow it to come through me without hanging on to it. So yeah. that's my quad rightness. So there's not a strategic bone in my body, and if I come into anything with an agenda, it doesn't work for me. So if I came with a list of things that I wanted to speak to, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it, because the audience, the people that are listening right now and in the future and in years to come, this is a message for them right here and now. this frequency, whatever is being transmitted now, has a whole timeline to work through. And people will hear whatever they want to hear. They'll take whatever they need to take from it. And hopefully, it's my wish that they will go and implement that and change their lives with it.
Yeah.
But, sorry.
No, I just think, because I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm thinking, I have the feeling I've done aspects of this without even knowing what I'm doing.
Probably.
Which is brilliant. But then sort of people like you, it's really important that there are people like you around who can delve into it the way you've delved into it and bring it to the world the way you can bring it to the world.
Yeah.
Because there are those people who require the way you are and what you can bring, that they're not like me. And it's just like, do you know what? I'm in trust mode. When I asked for what can I do to help me and I got guided to Reiki, I've just accepted it. I've learned what I've had to learn.
Yes.
I don't tend to go much deeper than that. No. Like you, I'm not actually a great reader. Yeah. I'm really not. Said that having read a book this week, but that is so unusual.
Yes.
Sometimes I can go years without picking up a book because that's how I am.
Yeah.
Because I feel there's aspects that is very similar with us. We are happy to be that channel.
Yeah. And that was one of the strongest messages that came to me through my Reiki practice. You know, I'd never heard anybody speaking about it, but my sense of Reiki was, we are the conduits. We're the channels for love energy. And the more that we can open up to that, then the more of our own conditioning, the more of our fear we can let go of, the more of our guilt, our shame, and we all carry it. Every one of us carries it. And the difference is when you start to work with your design and work with your chart, you see it much more clearly. And you can clock it and you can go, okay, come on then, what have you got to say to me? I always tell my clients to sit down with their shadow, their ego, whatever they want to call it. I have people name it and all sorts. You know, we've got angry Agnes and fearful Fred and, you know, whatever. You know, it's got to be playful. It's got to be light. But we can do some really deep work when we bring a bit of lightness to it. And I always say, you know, invite the shadow in. You know, invite them into coffee. Make them your best friend because it's part of you. And part of this journey is acceptance. We can't change our past. We can't change the things that we've done. But what we can do from this point now is accept that we were in a state of delusion, fear, anger, shame. And moving forwards, all we can do is say, I will try and keep my awareness of that. And whenever that comes up, because it will keep on coming up over and over and over again, and the challenges can sometimes get hard. The closer you are to getting to your life purpose, the bigger the lessons come, but there's a difference in the way that you receive them. Because you no longer see it as something terrible and something to be feared. You start to welcome it because you know that lesson, that challenge is going to take you one step closer to being of service to not only yourself, but everybody around you. And to humanity itself. We're all deeply connected. Whatever we do here right now, whatever healing we do, we're spreading that. So if you have an issue with the wars that are going on in the world, start looking at your own internal wars. Where are you in conflict with yourself? When are you saying I should be doing something? When are you doing things out of obligation? Because when we put the body, mind over matter, when we put the body in compromising positions that it doesn't want to be in because the mind has overridden the body, that's when we start to break. That's when we get into our guilt, when we get into our grief, and that's when these psychosomatic problems and diseases start to come up in us. So the outer world, what you're seeing in the outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on inside of you. So if you don't like the pollution that's going on, clear your body out, clear your own body out, clear your own mind out, clear your own emotions out. If you don't like that people aren't taking responsibility, start taking responsibility.
Yeah, there's that beautiful saying, isn't there? If you want to sort of heal the world, start with yourself.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. We as expected. So obviously we're actually at time, but it doesn't matter. We can go a bit over. That's not a problem. But obviously the last question I usually ask is there anything we haven't touched on? And to a certain degree, the life purpose has been touched on, but only literally touched on. So how do you use the human design to express your life purpose?
Your life purpose comes through 4 energies within your design, and it makes up 70% of your whole being. And so we take, from the personality side, from the mind side, we take your sun sign and also earth. So earth isn't included in astrology, but it is in human design. And that helps you to understand what you're here to do in this lifetime. So this is the life purpose. And then we take the sun sign and also the earth sign of the 88 days prior coordinates, and that's your soul's purpose. And those two, you might have heard, people saying that's the cross that I have to bear. We call it the incarnation cross. So you can either see it as a cross to bear, and generally I hear that from people who don't know their purpose, they don't have that anchor. Or it can be the art of your life that you can live. And everybody has their own art forms. There's 192 different incarnation crosses. And in each of those crosses, there's so many nuances that we go through. So we focus on those 4, and then we start to feather in the relationships that people have had. And we start to look at how has that got you closer to your purpose, now knowing what your purpose is. And suddenly it's like a light bulb goes off. And people start to make the connections, and they start to see, oh, yes, I see why I had to go through that. Because the cross is what we're here to live out. This is what we're here to do. This is our mission.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels like Mission Impossible.
When you don't have your anchor. But if you've got the map,
yeah,
and you've got all of the tools, you've got your fair weather gear on, you've got your rucksack and all of your food, you can hike up that mountain, no problems.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
When you're out in the wilderness barefoot with no guide or map, yeah, I can see how it gets quite tricky.
Yeah, absolutely.
I live my life like that.
But it's fun. What are you prepared to take out of it?
How not to do things.
But isn't that that's as valuable a learning how to do things? Because when what was it? The guy that invented the light bulb. I found 1,000 ways of how not to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people are designed to experiment. They are literally a walking experiment.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with those people, I always say to them, just turn up, do the experiment. It doesn't matter what comes out of it, because all you're doing is you're figuring out what you like and what you don't like, what serves you, what doesn't serve you, what you need, what you don't need.
Yeah.
Just do the experiment. Don't see it as trial and error.
Yeah.
There's no error in it.
No.
So for some people, they have really quite traumatic lives until the point that they learn about human design. And when they realize that their energy is actually highly adaptable and geared to really make a lot of money if they can tune into their design, then suddenly they don't see it as a scary thing to do their experiments. They don't see it as trial and error or guilty because they got it wrong.
I don't see that you can make mistakes. It's just the next step.
Yeah.
But sort of that's just me. Okay.
And that's because you've done a lot of deconditioning yourself. So
yes, I think I probably have.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you feel should be mentioned?
I don't think so at this point, because to talk more about human design is to really get into the technical side of it, and the different types and the energies and the role that we're here to play, as well as the incarnation crosses. And it teaches you how to accurately make decisions. And there's imprints as well about your childhood traumas. So that's really all that there is, without actually taking somebody through a process for them to know at this stage. Yeah. So I would probably end on that. I mean, I personally offer 20-minute free consultations anyway. So if somebody's out there thinking, does this meet my needs? Will it suit me? I will be perfectly honest with you, and I'll tell you whether you're ready, whether I feel as though you're ready for it or not. Because I don't want anybody to be investing in a program or a path that isn't quite in reach yet. Maybe in the future, but they're not quite there. But what I will do is I'll give them other resources to help them to get to that point as well.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And your website is www.soulseducation.com.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And folks, I will make sure that is under the video on YouTube. So if that's where you're watching, that's where it is.
Also, just to say, on my Facebook page, Souls Education, in the bio, you can actually run your own chart. So Genetic Matrix is the program that you can use. It just needs your time, your date, and your place of birth. And then you can see what a chart actually looks like for yourself. And my website has lots of information about how to decode that.
Nicky, thank you so much for joining us and sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure. I am going to say this evening, because for us it is.
Yes. And happy solstice.
And happy solstice. Yes, absolutely. So if you're watching tomorrow or day after, you're thinking, what? You're now watching the recording. So thank you so much for sharing. It has been a real pleasure. And folks, if you feel drawn to learn more, please do connect with Nicky. Really do. Next week, we have a today's conversation for you, shamanic healing, with our guest, Ali Taylor. So I hope you will join us then. In the meantime, Nicky, thank you very much indeed. Folks, thank you very much indeed. And we will see you again soon. Namaste, sweet souls.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Bye.